Hi, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. I was trying to wait to give time for more people to log in, but I don't think I see people in the waiting room. Let me just check that real quick. Okay, well, I do not see anybody in the waiting room, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Open Road Fund Community Education Sessions. I'm Shireen Anukwe, and I'm the Grant Program Associate for the Open Road Fund and the facilitator for tonight's session. Thank you for joining us for the third workshop in this series, Raise the Roof. The Open Road Fund Community Education Sessions provide financial education, resources, and valuable information. These sessions are free, they're virtual, open to the public, and Black-centered. They are designed around our 5 wealth building themes, which are the Open Road Fund's 5 wealth building themes, which are housing and shelter, financial well-being, economic ownership and power, education, and health and healing. So I am going to go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Oh, I was looking at the wrong screen. Olivia's on it. Welcome to the Open Road Fund. Again, the sessions. And for those of you who are not already familiar with our work, the slide you were just on. For those who are not already familiar with our work, Nexus Community Partners is a nonprofit located in St. Paul, Minnesota. Our work builds more engaged and powerful communities of color by supporting community building, initiatives that expand community wealth and fosters social and human capital. Nexus stewards the Open Road Fund, a $50 million community trust fund endowed by the Bush Foundation. We serve the regions of North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. In addition, we also offer community engagements and programming opportunities like the workshop that you're currently attending. And this that you see is our small but mighty team, which I'm a part of. Some of them are on the call behind the scenes, ensuring that everything runs smoothly. So next slide is our advisory council. Our advisory council is a vital partner in stewarding the Open Road Fund. They're comprised of professionals from diverse fields and areas of expertise. They played a key role in developing and designing the fund, and continue to provide valuable guidance. Our council members reside across the 3 states that I mentioned that we serve, which is North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. So I'm going to go over the agenda for tonight. And I've got, well, during this presentation, I should mention there's going to be a reflection exercise. So if you want, it's not required, but if you want to get some paper to jot it down, I just wanted to mention that. And participants, we're also going to have a drawing, and participants must have attended the entirety of the workshop and be present to win when their name is called for the random prize drawing. So first on the agenda, I've already gone through my spiel on Nexus and Nexus Community Partners and Open Road Fund. But we're also gonna briefly watch a video excerpt called Banking on Us. And then we will, I'll introduce the guest panelist for tonight, or guest presenter for tonight. And then he will talk a bit about Model Cities and what he does there and their work as an organization. and then we'll have a facilitated discussion, and then we'll open for Q&A, and we will have the drawing, and then we will say goodnight for the night. So thank you once again for everybody who is here. We're going to watch this clip, which is a short clip that explores the challenges and rewards of home ownership. Banking on Us is a limited series produced by Strong Black Lead, and this episode is about 5 minutes. So we're going to watch the clip. Thank you. I'm not hearing any sound.
Or the Black financial institution behind that dollar.
Thank you. Can we restart it real quick?
What does it really mean to invest in the Black community? It means empowering the Black financial institution behind that dollar. This is Banking on Us.
Let's talk about getting a mortgage.
I believe that home ownership is essential for the Black community.
We were like two old hippies, two old green heads. When we got our first car, I paid that 23% because I didn't have bad credit. I had no credit. But I think a lot of times it's just that we don't think long-term.
The joys of home ownership are real, but so are the challenges.
Poverty has a way of recycling itself. If you're born a certain way, it's hard to get out.
My name is Aaron Mitchell, and I lead HR for Netflix Animation Studios. My wife and I decided we need to buy a house. Wife had a good job, really good credit. And when it came time for our mortgage, the only option that was made available was a subprime mortgage. A couple years after the piece of property that we purchased was now less than half of what we purchased. Our mortgage payments were about to go through the roof while the value of the home cratered. We later found out many of these banks just discriminated. That was revealed in the court of law. And we were having these debates about all the things that went wrong and all the people who did things wrong. And I'm like, I'm one of those stupid people. And I'm not that stupid. This isn't about stupid people. This is about a system that was designed for people to be taken advantage of.
The American dream has always been the white picket fence, sharp cut green grass, a yard, and coming home to your family after a long, hard day to a safe environment, right? Well, the Black American dream is a bit deferred. In fact, Black homeownership is about 30% behind white Americans. Black people go through extremities compared to other Americans when buying a home. Black families experience difficult standards during the process for purchasing, and in general are subject to lower value homes. Plus, they're getting taxed with much higher rates from the banks. On top of all this, Black families are typically bringing in student loan debt, multifamilies with on average little to no generational wealth, and in turn, using their pensions or 401k to offset the down payment costs, which then incurs a penalty. Money is being lost. And don't even get us started on the leaps and bounds needed for Black people to also sell their homes at the actual old value. The real estate and homeowners market is the wild, wild west, and they're making a lot of effort to make sure Black people only have access to ride on the smaller horses, while everyone else seems to have the most fit horses across the lands. Well, there are some things that we just can't run away from, so let's run towards it.
To be a homeowner and a person of color, it's the first step in generational wealth. It's one of the greatest accomplishments I've ever made. My name is Dominique Lumpkin. I'm a Memphis, Tennessee native. Appraisals are a little bit racially motivated. I just know from experiences with other first-time home buyers that a lot of the appraisals for their houses seem to be a little bit more than market value because of the neighborhood. We hope. I became a homeowner in 3 months for less than $5,000. I'm a part of their zero down program. What they did was they upfronted all of the down payment costs. I only had to pay for closing.
To be able to have those conversations with people that didn't have a clue that that was possible for them.
We had paid rent for a while. So we got to a certain point in our life, we realized that in order to really accumulate some wealth, that we need to perhaps think in terms of trying to buy a home.
In 2015, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And that sort of put a halt on the home hunt.
The people at Hope were very, 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 very helpful and encouraging along the way. For the same money, we got twice as much house. So I think for me, and I know for her to a certain degree as well, it's just growing up feeling like ownership is the key. I value the fact that they, in my eyes, went the extra mile to help us realize our dream.
I have a place that is my own, that is my land, that no one has permission to walk upon my land without my approval. It's power.
And so I think about the importance of telling these stories about Black businesses thriving, Black communities thriving, Black people thriving as a result of being empowered by capital. I think a lot of people have just assumed that there's no way to solve these problems, or that maybe folks are not progressing because they choose this. But really, the reality is, if you can just correct some of the wrongs in these systems, then these communities can flourish and we all flourish as a result.
Thank you. So as we understand, the challenges that some of these systemic issues, especially around home ownership, there are certainly people and specifically organizations who are doing things to combat these issues and provide resources to get us on the right path. And Model Cities is definitely one of those organizations. So Model Cities is a nonprofit agency that aims to provide social and economic prosperity by providing access to opportunities that stabilize and develop families and communities. They have also been instrumental in redeveloping the Rondo and Frogtown neighborhoods in particular in St. Paul to prevent displacement often caused by gentrification. And tonight, next slide, please. Joining us is Jeff Wills. Jeff Wills, who works at Model Cities, is a native of Queens, New York. My friend is from Queens. He will be so mad. A native of Queens, New York, came to Model Cities with over a decade of cumulative experience as a homeowner, home ownership advisor, banking manager, and consumer lender. Constant in Jeff's career is that he's been a relentless advocate for economic equity, with a particular focus on financial empowerment for disenfranchised and disadvantaged communities of color. Jeff graduated from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities as a student athlete and earned his Bachelor of Science in Business and Marketing Education. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Jeff. And with that, I am going to hand it over to you, and you can do your presentation and introduce yourself.
Ooh,
Thank you.
Well, I'm humbled and honored for the privilege of speaking today about homeownership, and also thanking Shireen and the Nexus community team for inviting me. And I'm going to thank y'all in advance for letting me know when to stop, because I can probably go and talk about this topic all night, and y'all have stuff to do, so we don't want to be here forever. If we can go back one slide, Olivia, thank you. So, Shireen mentioned some of my professional background. I want to invite you all into my personal space and paint a picture about, how and why I chose the career path and why some of the career path chose me. Personally, Shireen mentioned I'm from Queens. I grew up in a neighborhood, in a home that my grandmother owned, that my parents inherited. So personally, I can attest and speak to the benefits that growing up in not only a home, but a community of homeowners can bring. That I am a product of my environment, and homeownership attributed to that. I'm also part of a statistic that we'll kind of address later on throughout the day or throughout the night, of what can happen if you lose your home due to foreclosure. I started my career in banking to get really a handle on learning a system that I didn't know, wasn't taught to me. And my goal was to learn this system in a way that allowed me the ability to distill the information to my community, the people around me. And I ended up leaving my career in banking when I realized a point that I wasn't able to impact and have the impact and change that I wanted to have with my community. So I really stumbled on this work that I'm in now. And anybody that is willing to hear or asks, I tell that this is the most rewarding work I've been a part of, really helping to shepherd people along this really complex journey towards homeownership. Whereas the video alluded to, there's many pitfalls, and I myself, even having some familiarity with banking in my first attempt to buy a home, what feels like a million years ago, I made mistakes that cost me time and money. And my job now puts me in a position to help people avoid those mistakes, to put people on the quote unquote right path to homeownership. So, Olivia, I'm ready for the next slide. So in the next period of time, we're going to walk through a few things that, I know this goal, everybody here that's attending this workshop, this webinar, has a shared and aligned goal of buying a home. So kicking off, I wanted to start talking about goal setting, specifically the goals that we have around homeownership. But before we dive into a lot of the practical aspects of how to get there, I wanted to take a moment to really explore why we're here. Next slide, Olivia. So I'm going to ask that you all walk with me in this reflection exercise to really explore, what does homeownership mean to you? So I want to, if you aren't already, get comfortable, get into a space where you're comfortable, and open your minds for a moment. Now I'm going to guide you through an exercise that'll help you get clear about your why and help you see the life you're working toward when you own your own home. So for this visualization reflection exercise, I'd like you all to picture yourself in the future. Several months or maybe even a few years from now, you've accomplished your goal of homeownership. You're standing in front of your very own home. It's yours. Now, take a moment to ask yourself, why did you want to own a home in the first place? What made you take that first step towards this goal? Was it the desire for stability? The dream of creating a space that's truly yours? Maybe it's the ability to build equity and create a future for you or your family. Now, allow yourself to bask in that sense of accomplishment. Let it fill you up. And in that, I want to take another step and go deeper. What does your life look like after you've owned your home? Now, I want you to think about the space. Maybe you're in a cozy living room with soft light coming through the windows, or maybe picturing your beautiful backyard, enjoying a quiet evening with family or a barbecue with friends. What are you doing in this home? What's different in your life now that you own your own place? To activate all of our senses, I want you to take another step with me. What does your home smell like? Are you a baker? Or are you going to have freshly baked cookies in the kitchen? Maybe it's a scent of clean wood or your favorite scented candles. What about the sound? Is there laughter from your kids? The coffee machine going? The drip of the coffee machine going? The sound of rain tapping on the windows as you sit by the fireplace? Now, I'd like you all to really close your eyes and soak in that imagery. How does it feel? How are you feeling emotionally, physically? Is there a sense of freedom, a sense of comfort, security even? I'm going to ask this question again where we started. How is homeownership changing your life? Does homeownership give you more freedom to express yourself? Does it offer you a peace of mind? Most importantly, what are you no longer worrying about? Now, I want you to also visualize the path that got you here. What resources and support do you need to turn this vision that you've created into a reality? What is the next step or steps for you and your family? To give you some food for thought, it might be something as simple as having a clearer understanding of what your finances are. Maybe you need a better understanding of the general home buying process. Perhaps you're looking for a support system of like-minded individuals to help keep you motivated. Is it time to make a budget? Time to save more aggressively? Do you need help with improving your credit score or learning about mortgage options? Perhaps you want to surround yourself with experts who can guide you every step of the way. Think of the people and resources you can tap into. Now, what tools do you need to help bridge the gap from where you are today to where you want to be? I'll pause for just a moment for you to continue that reflection, asking yourself the questions that I've been asking you so far from what you see on the screen. I'm going to take a moment to write down some of the important notes that you are reflecting on the piece of paper in front of you. All right, Olivia. Okay, so now that we've have some visualization of what homeownership will look and feel like for you and your family, it's time to talk about the next critical step, getting qualified for a mortgage and building your team. Because unless you're one of those rare people that swim in a pool of gold like your Scrooge McDuck, the reality is we're going to need to borrow money from a financial institution to buy a home. This part can feel a bit overwhelming, but the good news is, from my experience doing this work, you probably are a lot closer to being mortgage ready than you think you are. So the most important thing in this stage is to recognize what support system you have access to. One of the most valuable resources in your home buying journey is your HUD certified homeownership advisor. They are specially trained to guide you through the entire process. And unlike people who might have financial incentives tied to your purchase, your advisor has one goal, to make sure you are an informed, empowered consumer. Now, if you're in a region where building a one-to-one relationship or one-on-one relationship with your HUD certified homeownership counselor is not possible, attending a first-time homebuyers class facilitated by a HUD certified advisor, whether it be virtually or in person, is the next best thing. These classes break down in great detail the steps that include budgeting, savings, credit, maximizing the potential of your credit, how to shop for a lender, how to shop for a realtor, what down payment and closing cost assistance is available in your regions, excuse me. All of that is included in that class that increase the likelihood of realizing your goal of homeownership. Now, after your advisor and building your team, before I go over that, your advisor in the vast majority of cases is somebody that works for a nonprofit like the one at Model Cities and does not charge you for their time or services. That's a very important detail. Now, after your advisor, the lender and realtor play critical roles in qualifying you for mortgage programs and finding properties that meet your needs and as many of your wants as you can afford. The class is facilitated by the HUD certified advisor, can equip you in identifying a quality lender and realtor that's particularly skilled in helping first-time or first-generation homebuyers realize their goals of homeownership. Olivia, I'm ready for the next one. All right, so this journey doesn't end when you close on your first home. In fact, that's really just the beginning. The average home buyer, according to the National Association of Realtors, stays in their home for about 13 years. And that means the work that you put in now, all of the financial planning, the budgeting, the effort to get mortgage ready, and everything that follows, needs to be continued throughout your time as a homeowner. It's a marathon in this game, not a sprint. But the good news is you don't have to do it alone. Just like you've leaned on your homeownership advisor and your support network to get you to where you are and to get you to this point of your closing on your home, you'll want to keep those relationships strong moving forward. Stay in contact with your advisor, your mortgage lender, and your support network because they're there to help you maintain ownership, build your equity, and keep you on track for whatever future goals that you have. And this, for me, is one of the milestones that we help our clients get to, is that closing piece is such a big milestone, especially for those that sometimes spend years getting to that part. It's important to celebrate this incredible milestone, but also remember that this is just the start of your new chapter. You've worked hard to get there, and now with the right mindset, support, and dedication, you'd be ready for the journey ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much
Mhm.
for that. I just wanted to chime in and say the piece that you mentioned about maintaining those relationships, and I'll just disclose that I um, myself am a new homeowner recently due to Jeff's support, advocacy, and being my ally in that. Um, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's yeah, for all of those gems. I just so now we're just gonna have a discussion so that people know, and then we will open for Q&A after that. And I just want to mention to please put your questions in the Q&A section. So I think I might even be able to share my screen right before we go to Q&A and show some people in case you're not familiar with where the Q&A section might be. Um, so as the video excerpt that we saw earlier, Jeff alluded to some of those systemic disparities regarding lending practices and divestment in historically marginalized communities, among other things. Can you elaborate on what some of the larger issues are regarding challenges to home ownership, specifically for Black people?
Yeah. The video had a statistic that shared that Black homeowners, there's the homeownership disparity in just the nation overall. Black homeowners own homes at 30% less than their white homeowners. And there's lots to unpack in that statistic alone. In my work, in my time as a homeownership advisor, meeting with people, I can't tell you how many folks and families that we've met with that feel discouraged on where they're at in the process. And there's some of what we talk about that's well within their realm and scope of control. But we try to start our classes and try to start our advising programs by addressing the systemic barriers that people face to help provide that context that not everybody that is trying to buy a home has the same starting point and is navigating and fighting the same barriers regarding systems. So to start taking the scenic route and answering your question, there's lots of reasons. When looking at mortgage denial rates, there's studies that show that Black, Latino, Native American home buyers face higher denial rates. A contributing factor is credit, asset differential. So when we're out in the market shopping, we're shopping against people, we're shopping against corporations that are buying a home. And in this market where inventory is so scarce, there's not very many homes in the market driving the price up. Having access to capital makes you a stronger buyer. And the data that shows is that our Black families that are looking to buy homes have a significant asset differential as far as just liquid assets that one can use to leverage to purchase a home.
Mhm.
There are down payment assistance programs that are tailored to address this disparity, but practices such as redlining, restricting people from buying a home in certain neighborhoods that are seen as affluent or higher value. There are practices like in Minnesota, the government executed eminent domain, buying out property from people in order to create highway projects or any other projects that are deemed to serve the greater good.
Mhm.
So there's a combination of different factors that include systemic bias that really help attribute towards this wealth disparity.
Right. Yeah. So I just want to be clear on asset differential. You mentioned that that means having access to capital or the differences in the inequity in having the access.
Mm.
So, like for example, maybe how my home buyership started. I would look at a house on Friday, and by Monday, somebody had made a cash offer for
Mhm.
the entire balance of the house.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or offers that include 20, 30, 40% down
Mhm.
or a percentage over asking price because they have the cash to make up that difference
Mhm.
and to outbid people that have um, either regular amounts of money or scarce assets. So it's a combination of factors that people are fighting against that we help people navigate.
Okay. Can you talk about the benefits? I mean, you mentioned some of that during your presentation, but about the benefits of home ownership and how exactly purchasing a home builds wealth. People talk about, you know, building wealth through home ownership, but how does that actually happen?
Yeah.
Because
A
people would
common
think
theme,
about assuming debt, you know.
yeah. So a common thing we hear in our class, we just taught a class in the last week, and one of the participants mentioned they want to buy a home, and if for some reason it doesn't work out in the neighborhood, they can always flip that home and take the money that they've earned and use that to launch X, Y, and Z. So I want to give some context about the housing market and what we mean when we say home ownership can help in stabilizing and building wealth. The wealth that we're talking about for people is accumulated over time. I mentioned before, it's a marathon, not a sprint. The concept of buying a home that is affordable, meaning that we're committing to a property that we know today and as far into tomorrow as we can project, we can afford that payment. So if we're doing the things that we teach in the class is assuming a fixed rate home mortgage that can lock you in for a very specific payment, over time, your home will appreciate in value. If you're doing the things that we teach you in the class and maintaining your property, that if you buy your home here, and not to be so abstract, I'll just talk about my own personal journey. I bought my first home, me and my girlfriend, now wife, bought our first home back in, I think it was 2008 or 9. We bought our home in a neighborhood in St. Paul. And at the time we thought that home would be our forever home. That we thought it was enough size to be able to house we wanted to grow a family. Now we have 2 girls, 6 and 3, and a dog, and all of the things that life can bring you. And all of a sudden, we found ourselves in a position where that house was not nearly as big as we originally thought it was going to be. Now we owned that home, goodness, for I would say about 7 or 8 years before we decided that we needed to move on. And the market over time, over that 8, 9 years, we bought in a balanced market, meaning that the inventory was matching the amount of buyers that were in the market. So it wasn't what we're in today, where things are a bit more imbalanced. So we bought at a part where it was more balanced, and we sold in a market that was during COVID, that COVID era where housing prices skyrocketed. Now, we were able to use the equity that we've earned. So our house, we bought our home at about 205 and we sold our home at 355 and used the equity that we've accumulated in that decade, roughly, to buy in a neighborhood we weren't able to afford to buy in when we first started to buy a home. So when we're talking about creating a long-term strategy, a lot of people have the mindset that the home that I buy, especially as a first-time or first-generation home buyer, that the home that I'm going to buy is my forever home. While it very well could be, the statistics and the data show otherwise. That this very well could be your stepping stone home. And that over time, period of 5-10 years, the market, a normal market, continuously appreciates in value between 3 to 5% per year. And you can use that earned equity to either purchase a home in a different area that suits your needs in that time, or you can use that equity that you've earned to, as an asset, the home that you have as an asset to fund your education, to fund your child's education, to launch a business, to do a multitude of things that can help put you in a position that is closer to that visualization exercise that you imagined. I'm rambling now, but did I come close to
No,
answering your
you
question?
ain't rambling. That's that's perfect. What are some things that someone looking to buy a home right now can begin to do right away to prepare themselves
Hmm.
for home ownership?
A core part of what we cover at Model Cities, we spend a lot of time reviewing budgeting. And the first thing that I recommend doing is to take inventory of where you're at today. And be honest with yourself. I know that that's sometimes very difficult to do. You know, our brains are wired to keep us safe and keep us comfortable. So when we try to poke holes in who we are, what we are, and what exists, that can be tough. But something that I recommend everybody do is take inventory. Where are you at? Talking about highlighting where are you at regarding your income to the penny, as close to the penny as you can get per paycheck, per year, per month, however you're paid. Let's hone in on what money is coming in. That for many is the easy part. The harder part is identifying what money is going out the door. I suffer from the hole in wallet syndrome, to where you put money in, but then sometimes you go back in to check it, and then there's less money than what you thought was in there is actually in there. So being able to master that and master, and I say that loosely, to really build the skills to understand what's coming in and what's going out is really critical first step. I mentioned in the earlier portion, building your real estate team. The home ownership advisor, you know, I admit I have some bias. That's what I've been for the last 5 years, but there's true value in that. Is that there's a lot that we don't know going into this space. And your home ownership advisor, finding and building that team, starting with the advisor, is really critical first step or next step into helping you fill in the blanks between what you know you have. So if you are not sure how to build a budget, if you lack the skills in trying to fill in those gaps, your home ownership advisor is well equipped to help you satisfy that. So that's where I recommend people start. There's more to it, but that's a good starting place.
Absolutely. That was for me myself was wonderful home buying experience, having again you as an ally an advocate really for me in situations for things that I didn't know, but also my realtor who was actually my old high school friend, and certainly a woman who my lender was very helpful as well, and really I felt, were advocating for me. Um, One thing I do want to wonder is about credit ratings. People talk,
Mhm.
a great deal about credit, whether it's financial advising or homeowner um, homeowner home ownership classes, talking about credit rates. So um, often credit ratings are deemed as one of the most important factors how much of an impact does credit really have, on your home buying options? And are there other things that might be even more undesirable to lenders when lenders are looking at your application?
Credit is extremely important in this space. My goal as an advisor is to help put people in positions to where they have that luxury of choice. And that's a powerful luxury that folks have to fight for, especially when factoring in the systems of credit were not built for us in mind. There's policies that are created that either intentionally or unintentionally create power dynamics, and credit is one of those systems that attributes greatly towards the mortgage denial rate for Black homebuyers or potential homebuyers. So I mentioned before, budgeting is a real core component about what we focus on. And often people separate the two, the budgeting and the credit, where really they're so far intertwined. Mastering or trying to get some deeper understanding of what our budget is helps us to build a strategy that we can execute to make the most of our credit. So if you search the internet and ask Google to say, what credit score do we need to buy a home, it's very likely that you'll find answers that say you can buy a home, or videos, content creators say you can access home mortgages with a 580 credit score. That is true. While it is true, I want to circle back to my goal as a homeownership advisor is to help people afford themselves the luxury of choice. Credit is important because the higher your credit is, the more options that are available to you. And in this market where finding your competitive edge is so tough, where you're competing against people that maybe have more wealth than you might have, more resources than what you might have, it's very important that we try and edge out as much and eliminate and give us access to as many of those wealth building tools like down payment assistance programs, like the affordable loan options that many states offer, that typically have a minimum credit score requirement of around 640 to 650. Many people have that idea that you need a 700, 750, 800 credit score in order to purchase a home. And there's a lot of misdirection, misinformation that's out there, that's floating around. Some of it is true and some of it is not as much. I bought my first home a million years ago when I had bruised credit. I've had experiences where I started my career in banking to learn a system that I wasn't taught. I took my lumps in college and out of college, even though my brother told me not to open that credit card, I opened the credit card even though I had no income to pay for it. When that credit card came due, I didn't have a checking account to make that payment on that credit card. I had a savings account, and I learned a valuable lesson that day that you can't make payments over the phone with a savings account routing number and account number. So my 0% credit card that I opened turned from 0% now to about 25% interest with some fees. So I made some mistakes. There's a longer story there, but all that to say is I made my mistakes in college or in coming out of school, that I started to heal, learning the systems of banking and how to rebuild. And my credit score is about that 640, 650 around that time. So you don't have to wait until you are in that upper tiers of credit. That will come over time with some intentional planning. But my recommendation is once you get to about that 600 to 650 range, start to explore what you might qualify for now with an idea and a plan of building on that as you are a homeowner and beyond.
So, I wanted to talk about the current home market, considering the different regions that we serve: North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota, and what resources might be helpful. And then I have a couple of follow-up questions just to some things that you were saying earlier. But what kind of market do you think we're in right now?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, the market is not balanced. There is, for people that have shopped already, and you who recently, and within the last year or so, bought a home yourself, you can attest to this, is there's not a bounty of affordable homes in the market.
There is
But there's
not.
a lot of people. Yeah, there's not. Supply and demand, if the supply is low and demand is high, what's going to happen to prices? It's going to go out the roof. And that's what we're experiencing right now. So the, and sorry, can you repeat the question one more time? I had it and then I lost
Just
it.
talking about the
The
market
yeah.
and how it's going up because, for example, when I was looking, I was specifically, looking in particular areas. I wanted to stay, close to somewhere in the vicinity of where I live. And I was aware that these houses, I really love, ranch style 1950s, 60s houses, mid-century houses. So these houses that previously, prior to COVID, were, maybe 230, we're now almost $400,000.
Correct.
So kind of thinking about the market, because I always hear people saying, a buyer's market, a seller's market, and identifying kind of what kind of market we're in now, and just what you're saying, like how it impacts someone who's either selling or buying.
So since COVID, we've taken steps that are getting closer to a balanced market. When I say closer, I mean closer as in marginally closer. We're still very much in the seller's market, meaning the people that currently own the home and are selling it have the advantage. And when they have the advantage, that drives home prices up. So our average client doesn't make six figures and beyond. They are people that make modest incomes. And we have to rely on resources like down payment assistance programs that can be layered on top of each other to help bolster what is and bridge the gap between what is affordable for me right now, just without assistance, and what I need to be able to compete in this market. So in the last year, we've helped, goodness, I should have these stats right in front of me, but roughly between 50 and 60 families buy homes. And of that 50 or 60 families, roughly between 40 and 45 families were identified as Black or African American. And in Minnesota specifically, there are programs that have taken attempts at addressing some of the systemic reasons why we have a housing disparity as it is today. So to name some of them for Minnesota, or to at least name where to go to start to find some of these resources. Model cities, of course, is one of them. We're only a few people strong, so we can't hold all of Minnesota. So there's a network of homeownership advisors that exist within Minnesota. The Minnesota Homeownership Center has a network of advisors that have the training similar to what I have, and what we do, a similar approach. To highlight that further, I belong to a real estate association, ARAB Twin Cities, the Black Real Estate Association of the Twin Cities chapter, where there are like-minded realtors, lenders that share the mission that I share, and that can help connect people to those resources. We can't field everybody at Model Cities, but there's lots of other people in Minnesota that can. Now, regarding North and South Dakota, they don't have an equivalent to the Minnesota Homeownership Network. So it may be a bit more challenging. That's why I kind of alluded to that folks that live specifically in North Dakota, there's a lower amount of homeownership, HUD certified homeownership advising agencies. But each state has a housing finance agency that can connect you to specific affordable loan options and the people that do the work in those areas. Now, all that to say is we don't typically turn people away. If you find yourself in an area that does not have a bounty of homeownership advisors, I implore you, to contact the folks, either the folks at Model Cities or within our network, to at least get some guidance on where to go. There's so many resources, and resources are typically best tailored on a one-on-one basis. So your homeownership advisor, finding one or at least connecting with one out of your state. In Minnesota, we have a bounty of homeownership advisors. We can help you navigate the systems that you may not be familiar with to access the resources like down payment assistance, or the concept, I think we're going to talk about this later, of a community land trust model of buying a home.
Mhm. Yeah, Jeff, this is just kind of came to mind, um, and also a curiosity of someone on the team is there is a house across the street from me.
Mm.
This is concerning putting your house in a trust that if you do buy a house, um, what are your thoughts on that? And the reason why I bring up the house across the street is because it's currently abandoned,
Mm.
and we know what that does to property value.
Yeah.
However, the city does come and cut it, and I'm sure send them a bill for
Mhm.
that $800 lawn mowing. But um, the house, I believe, is in a trust. Um, so what's your thoughts on that? Like, what's the benefits? Why it could be problematic?
Yeah. I'm going to use my family and my home as and my journey. This is something I've been more recently learning about, and we're actively thinking and starting the planning process of putting our assets into a trust. So I want to disclose that this is not my area of expertise. I'm in the process of consulting several lawyers and attorneys that this is their area to get their guidance. When you purchase a home, you now have this asset that you're now obligated and responsible. I highly encourage folks to start the succession planning. And one thing is guaranteed, or a few things that are guaranteed, with taxes and death, or whatever. I can't remember how the phrase goes. I'm going to butcher that. But at one point, we all are going to move on. And building a trust, a will and a trust, helps to ensure that your assets go where you want them to go, with as small of a burden to the people that you leave behind, and helping to navigate that, what happens after you depart. So trusts, as we're exploring, is a very powerful tool in putting like life insurance policies, your home, cars, vehicles, assets, bank accounts. Trust can be a really powerful tool in helping to avoid costly fees that probate and everything else can bring, and helps to reduce the burden that your family would have in the event of your demise. So that can be a whole subject in itself, estate planning.
Mhm. Yeah.
That,
Yeah, I was just curious because this house, I know the previous owner, I came and met her. I wasn't supposed to, but hey, she had some stuff she wanted to leave, and I, I needed the yard stuff, so we hooked something up. But
yeah, to answer that question, from what I've learned of it, I'm a fan, and I'm moving in that direction. It takes time, it costs money to pay for the lawyers to draw up the trust. So now I have to incorporate that in our financial plan. Is, how do we set aside money to pay for this lawyer? Because it's not cheap. We're talking in a lot of cases, there's several $1,000s that go into drawing up and creating the trust and then funding the trust. But for my family, I think it's the right move for us. So that'd be something that you have to take on a case by case.
okay. So I want to welcome everybody to start populating the Q&A. I see that there is a question in the Q&A now, so I will ask that. Could you also talk? So Q&A is open, just so everybody knows. Could you also talk about building wealth versus becoming house poor,
Mm.
especially given the current market, high prices, high insurance, high interest, not factoring in life changes and surprises?
Yes. So the buying a home is something that provides a great deal of stability in your housing payment. In this market, we've seen people, and I'm guilty of it myself, of stretching your budget and your scope of affordability to make the home fit the budget instead of the budget fit the home. Why I start off by saying the preparation, the planning phase is so critically important. One thing that I recommend people do, and I can't remember, I'm pretty sure I maybe offered this to you, Shereen, in our first maybe initial appointments, is visualize what is your affordable range for an all-in housing payment. This exercise is really important in helping you avoid that feeling of being house poor, because that's a really tough feeling where you feel like all of your money is going towards maintaining this house and not as much money is going towards just actually living.
Mhm.
So while you're in this budget preparation phase, it's very important to visualize, what am I going to pay for the mortgage? That includes the amount that you pay to the bank for the principal and the interest of your home. That also needs to include your taxes that you pay to the county and the insurance that you pay to protect your asset. If you are not paying utilities right now, factor in, what am I going to pay in utilities? And that's a quick Google search or a contacting of your utility company. Figure out what does an average utility cost. Factor all of that in and compare that with your current rental costs. Now, it's likely, depending on if you're moving from an apartment to a home, that your expense is going to increase. In fact, if it doesn't, I recommend forcing the issue to make it increase by, say, at least 10 to 20% of what you're currently paying in rent. The exercise is creating a form of payment shock to where you simulate what life will be like as a homeowner while you are still a renter. While we bought a home while our rent was at about $1,200 a month. And we projected our all-in housing payment to be no more than $1,800 a month. That was our cap at the time we bought our first home. So when we paid our rent, we put that extra $600 aside. That built our savings up, and then also helped us understand what life will be like post-purchase. So having that preparation in advance, projecting and planning for what your payment will be, and sticking to it once you start to shop is critically important in maintaining that and avoiding that feeling of being house poor.
Yeah, yeah. The acclimation for me was great.
Yeah.
It's with the cost of utilities, because when I rented, all of my utilities were included in that one lump sum. The next question in the Q&A is, can you talk about what a community land trust is?
Yeah. A community land trust, I'll try this. I know we're may not have full time to break this down fully, but a community land trust is a model of buying a home that typically has you partnering with a nonprofit. The arrangement is you are buying the property in partnership with the organization that facilitates and administers the land trust. So there is usually an exchange of funds that provide a subsidy to create and to close the affordability gap between what homes are selling for in the market and what a moderate or low income family could afford. I know Rondo Community Land Trust is a partner of ours, so I'll speak to their program. But other land trusts operate in similar fashions. So the Rondo Community Land Trust offers an affordability subsidy, a grant of upwards of $150,000 towards the purchase of a home in a specific territory. That's typical across all land trusts. They have a specific territory that they operate within, and the amount of subsidy varies from region to region, but this is Rondo's subsidy. Now, we typically recommend people consider the community land trust model for a number of reasons. First, financial, that if the amount of resources that we have to shop with, including your mortgage and all available down payment assistance programs, if we add all of those together and it's still not sufficient for buying a home that meets your needs on this market, the land trust is a phenomenal program to involve. Now, there is partnership and community that when you buy a home, there's additional layers of support that, which leads me to my second reason why we recommend people buy a land trust is the feeling of buying a home can feel overwhelming and anxious, anxiety inducing in some cases. To feel like I'm buying a home and I'm by myself, and if something breaks or whatever the case is, it's on me. The Rondo Community Land Trust has additional layers of support that can help advise you on how to maintain your property. Can also connect you potentially before the purchase on identifying what are some things that need to be addressed in the home that need to be repaired to make sure you don't have any immediate large expenditures in the first months or years of you living in that home. So there's that emotional safety net to know that there is some people in my corner that I'm not on my own with. So the financial, the emotional, mental support is a phenomenal reason to consider the land trust. It's not a one-size-fits-all tool, mainly for this last part, where people love that land trust model in the beginning, where we're talking about how much money is involved. And why we recommend land trusts when we've looked at the more, I use this air quotes, conventional means of buying a home, is land trust is a phenomenal option when we're looking at renting or buying a home, not being able to buy a home at all or renting. I'd much rather people buy the land trust, buy a land trust than rent continuously. The drawback of a land trust is that there is a split in the equity or the profits that you earn. So for my example, when I bought my home at 205 and sold at a much higher price point, in a land trust model, you typically split a percentage of those profits, where what's typical is 75% goes to the land trust to make it sustainable so they can help the next family or families that come after you, and you keep 25% of the profits of that increase in appreciation. So it's a complicated model. I'm doing a poor job explaining this in the short time that we have, but it can be a phenomenal tool for people, for some people that are faced with continuously renting or not buying at all.
Right. And is it also true, trying to remember about land trust that, you don't necessarily own the land. So people who had issues with, they want to own the land, you don't own the land as well, and maybe modifications to the house have a criterion or some.
Yeah, each land trust operates different, but the first part about the land trust owns the land is accurate across the board.
Mhm.
There's some land trusts like Rondo that allow you to do whatever you really want to the property with, as long as you consult them first. Each land trust operates differently depending on their region. So it's really important that you explore what land trusts are available in the areas that I'm interested in buying a home, comparing the different land trusts in the regions that you're interested in, making a decision about which one fits at least my short and medium term goals.
Okay. So there's another question is how long is the land trust, and is it indefinite or is there a term? And I think you somewhat answered that, but maybe you want to elaborate is that they vary.
Yeah, it really varies. I'll speak to the land trust that I'm most familiar with, the Rondo Land Trust. They operate under a 99-year term to where they own the land and you're essentially leasing the land from them at a very modest lease rent. I believe it's about $20 a month or $25 a month to lease the rent from the land. Now, what's also a feature of the land trust is because you don't own the land and your property taxes are determined on what you actually own. Typically, people that own property within a land trust pay a discounted tax rate. So it all ends up evening out based on your decreased taxes.
Mhm.
I'm not sure I'm answering your question or not. It can be a bit complex, but go ahead.
Just the question was about the term. Yep. So
Yeah,
the
the
how
term.
long and how long does it last?
Yes. So
Um,
a very long, over a lifetime. And the land trust model, from what I know, the land trust is created in a way that, the person asked about the trust. It helps in the succession planning. that once a home is in a land trust, it becomes easier to then pass ownership from one generation to the next. Whether it's in the case of you end up buying another home and selling to your children, or you passing on to your children, assuming ownership of the property.
Could you talk about, given the climate that we're currently in, with the new administration is, last year, I believe it was through legislation, a bunch of money um, came through the pipes specifically for um, down payment assistance. Just being that those are one of the forefronts of being able to overcome some of the challenges for first time home buyers, first generation. So, can you talk about some of those initiatives and funding?
Yeah. Um, Frankly, we're a bit concerned about the uncertainty that the future holds, where a lot of the programs that came up in the last administration were rooted in creating a more equitable housing market. And even saying equity nowadays is, I heard somebody say before, diversity and equity is no longer in fashion. And if it's not fashionable to talk about it, not fashionable to create policy around it, and if uh, I have concerns of how long the programs that are in place are going to stay in place.
Mhm.
It's a bit above my pay grade to say, are these programs going to stay? Are they going to go? All I know is the programs that are in effect have language in those contracts that makes me comfortable in knowing that they're going to be around at least for hopefully a couple of years. But I can't say with certainty how this administration is going to treat these programs locally. So I can't really fully address that question in this.
Mhm. So maybe let's focus on what does currently, exist and what some of those programs are for people who maybe don't know about the first time home buyer and first generation um, resources.
Yeah, so controlling what we have control over is what I typically recommend people do. What we have control over are the things that we've kind of been talking about all along. Um, I recommend people building a plan as if there are no resources available. That might extend your timeline a bit, but makes it especially important that we partner with people that are in this, that do this work every day, so they can help you identify the resources that might not be publicized. Too often, there are programs that are put out there that help people buy homes or help people achieve financial goals that don't go to Black and brown home buyers. That very important that you build a team around you that's plugged in and that can help connect the dots while the money is out there. Connect the dots between what programs are maybe even in a pilot phase that's not widely advertised. So very important that you plug in, control what you can control, but build a team around you that's very well connected and invested in advocating for what you are and what you need to make your goals a reality.
Absolutely. Um, Even with those challenges, like for example, the folks who are in North Dakota and South Dakota, being aware of leading in the top 10 of lowest number of Black home ownership. Um, I definitely think that tapping into some of the resources, we do have a resource list that I think was up when Jeff first started talking, and we'll bring that back up after Q&A as well. But being able to access those resources and rely on, as Jeff said, connecting with the homeowner associations who are working to help make it more equitable would be great. Let's see if I'm going to go back to the Q&A and see if there's any more other questions. And we're doing great on time. And just so people know, this workshop is until 7:30, and we will do the drawing right before we close. Could you say more about property taxes for the home in a community land trust? And I will tack onto that to please just talk about property taxes, because I actually had a scare the other day where I finally got my property tax bill and thought I had to ante up the full 5,000 or whatever
Yeah.
for the taxes. So can you talk about, say more about property taxes for both just a single family home and then also a community land trust?
Yeah, so every county has an office that is tasked with assessing the value of the property that you own every year. And they use um comparable sales in the market. They use, when you do renovations on your home, especially major renovations on your home that require permits. They look at what's been done on the property that would maybe affect the value of the home, or what's not been done on the property that would affect the value of the home. And they create an assessment on what they think the home is worth. That incorporates the value of the structures, the value of the land that you occupy, and the structures that reside and sit on the land, including the home itself, a garage if it's attached, a shed, all of the different properties and the structures that are live and occupy the property. So when you buy a home and you live in that home, first, if you have an arrangement, make sure you homestead your property. That should be the next, after you close on your home, the very next thing you should do is go to that county office and fill out the application. That's called, you're making this property your homestead, which means that this is my primary occupancy, or I'm living in this property the majority of the year.
Yes.
So based on that value that your tax assessor determines, they would calculate how much money you have to pay in taxes based on the value of that home. So there's two different values: the value, just the general value that you pay taxes on, and then the discounted homestead value, which is what I'm hoping your tax bill came out to, what mine comes out to. When you're buying in a land trust, because of that arrangement, you're buying the whole property in partnership with the land trust. The land trust owns the land, and you own the structures that are on the land. So when you are paying your tax bill, what's factored in is the part that you own. You own the structures, but not the land. So a good percentage, I can't speak to what the percentage is, that is the land, but I know Rondo believes that it is at least a 25, they're advocating for a 25 to 50% discounted tax rate for people that buy within the land trust.
Okay. Can you talk more about, someone has a question about buying a home with another person, whether it's a friend, a brother, communal living type of plan, and they ask, is that a good option for someone who is low income, that it feels like home ownership, is out of reach?
Yes, we meet with several multi-generational home buyers. In fact, that was one of the meetings I had just before this webinar, is a family that we're kind of strategizing how far can their money go alone versus in a communal sense, tying back to that vision that we helped create. What is your vision of buying a home? Is it with family or without? And tying in your inventory of where you are at compared to where your family is at. I think it's a very strong option to consider, to pool resources, especially where it comes to buying multifamily properties, like a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. All of those are considered still in the first time home buyer, first generation home buyer mindset. Anything above and beyond a fourplex turns into commercial, which is a whole different arena. But a 2, 3, 4 unit home or single family dwelling, buying that in a community can be a phenomenal idea, but it takes a great degree of planning to execute right. Long answer to your short question.
I want to back up a little bit. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to take this opportunity to ask this. If we could, and while it's fresh in my mind from my, own experience, is talk about some of the things, kind of the steps, step by step. So for example, when I was looking for a home. Oh, I'm sorry, there is a question here. Okay, well, I'll get to that. We have time. So, if so, can you please share how much income and how long you have to have a certain, oh, this is about money in the bank when you're going through the lending process.
Hmm.
Uh, how much money should you have in the bank for them to, figure that you're financially ready to be a homeowner?
So the question is outlining some of the steps that we
I'm
recommend.
sorry, I started to ask my question, but there was a question in the chat, and
Okay.
the question is how talking about how much income, kind of the process of the lending experience when they're checking your account, for example, for 3 months. I believe they request 3 months of income and stubs for maybe 6 months to a year. So what,
Yeah.
yeah, I think their question is about how much money um, you should have in the bank, I guess,
Hmm.
income to ratio, income ratio
So
debt,
I'm
the
going to
debt.
separate that question a bit. So when when lenders request to look at your bank statements to find out how much money you have, that's to answer the question of, do you have sufficient assets to cover down payment for the home that you're looking to buy and cover the closing costs of the home that you're looking to buy? They ask typically for 2 months of statements. One thing that we recommend people do is keep your money in an account that issues a statement, not in a closet or envelope or safe deposit box. It has to be physical money that's sitting in or rested in an account that issues a statement for 2 months. They look at the 2 month history to identify how has this money made it to the account. So now to address the second part, the income. Income is important in identifying how you get paid. If you are a W-2 person that you get a regular paycheck, there's very little paperwork in comparison to somebody that's self-employed that's required to provide everything short of blood samples and hair samples to document and prove your income. So for my business owners that are in this webinar or will listen to it later on, it's very important that you keep very precise paperwork to document your sources of income. Oftentimes, for business owners, they write off a lot on their taxes to reduce their tax bill. So as we're meeting with an advisor that can help us project what do we need to do, what financial documents do we need to prepare, we've advised people to revisit their previous tax returns with an advisor to look at what does an amendment to your return look like, um, to be able to show that you make what you make instead of what the accountants do and write off everything under the sun. But 2 years, the rule of two is one consistent thing. 2 years of consistent employment, whether it be in self-employed or W-2 or 1099 or anything of the sort, and 2 months of pay stubs and bank statements to provide to a lender to show what assets and income that you have.
Okay, great. I just wanted to announce that we currently have time to answer the last questions that are in the Q&A and do the drawing. So, and then also I had that one last question. So if I owned a home in the past and lost it due to foreclosure, would I be eligible for first-time home buyer programs after a certain time?
Yes, absolutely. Um, Depending on the type of loan that you're going with or program, typically it's 2 to 3 years. Where you, if you have not had ownership interest in a home, you are considered a first-time home buyer again. And in some cases, regarding first generation, because there's a difference. If you may be also considered a first generation due to the distressed nature of your sale of your home.
Okay. This last question in the Q&A is, how are grants, scholarships, and internships as income? So these streams of income being grants, scholarships, and internships, how is that paid internship looked at when purchasing a home?
Hmm.
How is that viewed?
So we talked about that 2 years of stable income to verify what your income has been. And that helps to answer the lender's question about what your income will be to help them answer the question of, can this person afford the loan that we're going to extend them? So where it comes to grants and scholarships and internships, it's important to understand what is the nature of those grants. Are they recurring? Have you had a history of several years of operating by grant and scholarship, et cetera? And is there any reason for your lender to believe that this sort of income will be reoccurring in the future? Tough to answer your question without more context about what types of grants that you have or scholarships, but it's a very nuanced question that has a lot of ifs and depends to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the steps, kind of the practical steps. So, for example, something that was a surprise to me was earnest money.
Hmm.
Just little parts that I really was not aware of because it was my first time, purchasing a home.
Yeah. So the steps, there's a lot of steps, and the classes that people teach to talk about this, I'm going to try to condense that into just a few moments then. Some of the things that catch people off guard is earnest money. So that upfront cost when you submit an offer on a home, it's typical to put a deposit down with that offer, if it's accepted, of at least $1,000 up to, really there's no limit of the up to, but it could be starting at $1,000 or 1% or more of the purchase price of the home. The earnest money demonstrates that you are a quote unquote responsible homeowner or potential homeowner, that you have assets. And that gives the seller peace of mind to know that this is a serious buyer and they have money on hand to be able to conduct this transaction. Another piece is the cost of a home inspection that is required up front and not at closing. That cost can range between $400 and $750 plus, depending on how many different add-ons you're opting in for on the inspection of your home. As far as upfront costs, those are two of the big ones that come up. More that are covered in the courses that we teach as homeownership advisors, but those are some of the more frequent questions about how much does an inspection cost? How much do I put down for earnest money? And when should I plan on delivering that money to the proposed seller?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff. I just want to say we are coming close to time. So I just wanted to ask one last thing. If you have, what is the best piece of advice about home ownership, either that you have or someone shared with you,
Hmm.
whether it was inspirational, practical?
I implore people to be patient with themselves. And I say that because people often come to us with their goal of buying a home at periods of time of transition, whether that be, most often it's when you get that lease renewal notice and you're informed that your lease is going to increase by X%. That's top of the list. Being patient with yourself and kind to yourself and gracious with yourself to understand that this can be a journey. And the people that are successful in navigating this long road to homeownership and all of the financial planning, the budgeting, the crediting, the accumulation of assets, navigating resources and programs that make that dream a reality, it takes time. And being kind to how we talk about ourselves and kind about our internal dialogue, that it's okay to feel the feelings that you're feeling. It's okay that your timeline is adjusted. The people that are successful are the people that continuously put one foot in front of the other and protect that vision and that goal that you created earlier today and keep working towards it. So the advice, I've heard somebody say, what is the best way to eat an elephant? one bite at a time and with community. So build your community, identify who your community is, who your team is, who your support network is, and take it one bite at a time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Great, great advice. Now is the time to put some money in some people's pockets. We have a random prize drawing, and my colleague and supervisor, Lavasha, is going to share her screen. I just want to remind people again that this is a giveaway for two $50 Visa gift cards, and you must have attended the workshop in its entirety and be present to win. So when your name is called, if your name is called, um, this is all of the registrants who have been here for the whole workshop. If your name is called, then we are also asking that you put your name in the chat so that you are confirming that you are indeed present for this drawing. So here we go. I feel like I should do a drum roll. And the wheel lands on Sally N. Is Sally in here? So, okay, Sally, I got you. So we are going to send your gift card to your the same email you registered for this workshop with. Okay, let's do another name. If you were not here on the first portion of the workshop, you may not be listed here. Rashawn S. Congratulations. All right. Oh, okay. Someone said they. All right. Congratulations. So before we end, Olivia, can you bring up, and I'll talk for a little bit so you have time because I'm springing this, but the last slide, when it just dawned on me, like when we end, although Jeff had a great ending and that probably would have been great had we not done the drawing after, but this is just a quote to send us on our way. So the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. So thank you all so much for attending. I want to thank Jeff Wills again from Model Cities for participating in this workshop and offering all the gems and great advice and being an ally and advocate for especially first-time homebuyers and specifically serving the Black community. So thank you so much. And unless there is anything else that anyone would like to say from staff or Jeff, we're going to call it a night.
Thank you all. Just remember to fill out the survey. We did put it in the chat. So just give us feedback on tonight's session. It really helps us to continue to improve the sessions for you all. So thank you.
Thank you, Lavasha. Because just as soon as I said it, I forgot. Have a good night, you all. And as she said, please fill out the survey. And Olivia, while maybe people are doing that, can you go to the slide that says resources? I think it's 2 in front of this, just so people can also see these resource lists again. Thank you. And I'll read them out loud. It's Model Cities, NARA, Twin Cities, Housing Justice Center, Rondo Community Land Trust, which was mentioned during this, and Black Hills Area Habitat for Humanity. I do want to say that these resources, they're not in association or partnership with the Open Road Fund, other than Model Cities through, offering this workshop. We suggest, researching this list to explore what might be helpful to you in your region. And As Jeff mentioned, it's also a great idea to reach out to organizations, even if they're not in your region, to try to figure out how they could be helpful and maybe research some resources that you didn't know about. Thank you so much once again for attending. You all have a good night and take care.